Hi guys.
Yeah.
Hello.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Hello, Magnus. Hello, Oliver. Hello to whoever is watching us. I'm actually very excited and a little bit emotional because I think this idea came out of nowhere, and like I'm ready. I'm super excited to also start with this podcast, and I couldn't think of best people to have this podcast and to help me with this podcast besides my like one of my two closest friend. Ma-
Hello.
What is wrong? Topic?
Wait, yeah, I don't know what's happening. Okay, I
Who-
don't know what was happening. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we
Yes.
could hear you all the time.
Okay, perfect. I hope our listener can also see, can also hear and see. If not, please feel free to reach out in the chat. Anyway, what I was saying, so a little bit about intro about what is this. This is Life in General podcast. I thought it would be a great idea to connect with my friends from abroad, my friends from here, in general, people who lived abroad and like experience life in general and in different many ways, and to sort of bring them on, share their life experiences, how their journey was abroad, etc., to also talk about what they learned in life and if they have any insight to share with the audience or people who are thinking to live abroad. And I just think it would be a good platform for all of us to utilize it. And since we talk a lot with everyone on day-to-day basis, I think bringing a lot of insights to everyone would be a great idea. So without further ado, I would like to welcome our first guest of this podcast, our first episode, Magnus Poulsen. And I also want to introduce Oliver Loschitzer, who is helping me as the co-host of this podcast. So, Oliver, do you want to say something before we give the floor to Magnus?
Yeah, I'm excited to be a part of this podcast, and I think it's been a cool idea from the very beginning. Taufik introduced me to it a few weeks ago, and I was in from the very beginning. So let's get on with it. Let's talk to Magnus, hear about his life in general.
Nice. Thank you, Oliver. Magnus, I'm very excited to have you. Just before I give you the floor to introduce yourself, I just want to give a little bit of context. So, Magnus, I consider him as one of my closest friend. We met each other in Spain when we both did our master in Spain, and we instantly clicked together. I think because we come from kind of similar background, we lived in different places, and we experienced a lot of the same experiences. And I think that's why we managed to bond so well with each other as well. So I couldn't, as I said, I couldn't think of a better guest to have for this first episode of the first podcast. And just one fun fact, and Magnus will talk about it later. Magnus went to the state to Florida on a scholarship as a swimmer because he has been practicing swimming since a young age. But I would leave that to him to speak. So without further ado, Magnus, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for having me. And also, as Oliver told me, or just said before, I think it's a great um, idea to connect like this. You know, we speak on a daily basis, so it's fun to also connect in a different way on video like this, talking about life in general and share some funny stories throughout our life together. Maybe some that are uh, better than others, some that are worse than others. I don't know. We have let's try not to get cancelled, but we can we can definitely try to see where this takes us. So yeah, thank you for having me.
Perfect. So Magnus, maybe just for like a little bit about your background, maybe you would like to share like kind of like an high level overview of your journey before we let's say delve deeper into it. So maybe just give a very quick overview of your journey so far, where you're from and where you are right now. I mean, I gave our listener a little bit of your bio, but I would like them to hear it from you as well. So if you can
No,
share a
for
little bit
sure,
about
for
your life.
sure. So, this feels like a job interview kind of that we have been through many times. But yeah, I'm originally from Denmark, where I grew up, and I lived until I was what was I 20 years old. I'm currently 28, so I've not been living in Denmark for the past 8 years. So as Tofik said, I moved to the US, to Florida, to continue and pursue my swimming. I was doing competitive swimming, and the reason for going to the US is because in Europe and Denmark, especially 8 years ago, there were not that many great opportunities to combine high level sports with university. So it's either like, do I want to keep on swimming and wait on getting an education, or do I want to get an education and then stop swimming on the level I did? So I had a lot of friends also who had been going to the US. So I saw it as a great opportunity to continue my my journey in the US doing both. So I was there for 4 years. It was crazy experiences, everything that you see in the movies, and especially also for a European, it's a very different world coming to the US. Everything is bigger. Everything is more wild. It is how you see it in the movies. But also on the other hand, they have such a great support system. They call you a student athlete because you're a student first and then you're an athlete second. But they create like a full support system for you as an athlete, where it's unmatched in any other country. They don't have it at all. Now, in Europe, they're starting to follow up a little bit on it, but it's still, as far as I'm concerned, not even close. So yeah, then I finished my 4 years there, and then I was thinking, what should I do now? Do I want to stay in the US? Do I want to go home to Denmark? What do I want to do even? So yeah, I looked randomly on the internet, and then I found a master's in Spain, a psychology, work organizational and personnel psychology master's that me and Tofik we studied together. So so then I moved there to Spain to do that in 2020 it was. And sorry, I was just getting distracted. So yeah, then I moved there during COVID, more or less. I came from Denmark, where we didn't really have lockdown, to Spain when all of a sudden there was lockdown, and there were all of these more stricter security measures in place. So it's also, very different being moving country during a pandemic, and starting a whole new life over in another country.
Did you move from the States directly to Spain in Corona? During Corona?
So actually, I had to leave the US. Like, I left a few days before they completely shut down all flights.
Did they force you, or you just decided to?
No, it was just more for like, there was an uncertainty, like what am I doing here all by myself in the US, what am I doing here? So like the flights are going to be shut down. There's like, I might get stuck. And no one knew what was going to happen. So that's why I decided then to go back to Denmark. And actually thought, like, oh, hey, I'll just go back to the US in some time. And then it opened up over the summer, kind of, where you could fly again. And then in the fall, in September or something like that, I moved to Spain, but it was still like with restrictions. You had to sign a lot of documents and everything to get in.
Interesting. I mean, yeah, I know from my experience of the US during Corona, I feel like it was much more relaxed, at least at the beginning. Like in terms of like how you felt the government was controlling you compared to like Europe. Like I feel like people were freaking out, like society was going to shit, but it didn't feel like you were filling out like forms or like had to go anywhere, like show up to places, or like other than stay at home orders kind of stuff. Like it wasn't.
No, it was definitely looser in the US. You guys had very few restrictions compared to a lot of countries in Europe. I would say Denmark was one of the looser countries in Europe, because, like, for example, in Spain, they had lockdown, as I told you, like you couldn't go out after, I don't know, 10 at night or something until 6 in the morning. Where in Denmark, like, there was never any lockdown like that. We had like social distancing. We had you cannot be more than, I don't know, 10 people meeting together, or 5 people. I don't remember how much it was. Like, we had these kind of restrictions. But compared to the US, like, you guys were super open.
I think also in general, like if we look at Danish culture and also Scandinavian, I think because in general they are more like, let's say not close, but more like individualized rather than collectivist. So I think Scandinavian country had it a bit easier in COVID. Whereas if we look at, do you remember our time in Spain, when like it's in Spain in general, it's a southern culture. It's a very open culture. People want to be outside all the time. It's like warm weather. And I remember during our time in Spain, like although there were severe and strict measures, most of the Spanish people did not care because it's sort of that they did not want to be prevented from being like spending their time outside on the beach, drinking their cerveza in a bar, or like hanging out with their old colleagues, friends, or the elderly as well. So I think for you, Magnus, as somebody who originally comes from, let's say, a much more reserved culture, let's say, moving to, let's say, the US, which is like a melting pot of culture, and then also moving to Spain, which is a very open culture, very out there, So how was, let's say, the transition from you? Because I think also adding COVID to it was a little bit tricky. And yeah, I do have some funny story to share about COVID that we can share later. But yeah, I want to hear your opinion first.
No, it's definitely it's something you have to get used to. At least like from when I moved to the US, for example, you get instantly put on, the team, the swim team, where there's 60 other people with, obviously there are a lot of Americans, but there are also many people from different cultures, different countries, all over the world. So that is something where you have some people who more or less have the same mentality as you. There are some people who have very different mentality from you. So it's something that, I don't know, you have to learn how to navigate in it. I would say being in the US, experiencing all of these different cultures definitely made it a lot easier to move to Spain. Also, in general, I mean, that I'm a pretty relaxed guy, and don't take things too serious. Just like let everyone be who they are. We just take it as it comes, right? So I think for someone like me and someone who has like this kind of same personality, it's a lot easier. Where if you are a little bit more like strict in your ways of thinking, in your ways like you're brought up, it can definitely be a little bit harder. But definitely like moving to Spain, it was though very different still from Denmark, and also my experience in the US, where it's so collectivistic in a way. And as you said, we are always outside on the street, together outside. You're never inside. Sorry, I'm just getting some messages. So it's very different from what I know. And then we can talk a little bit about some funny stories during COVID, because we're still young when we were there, doing stupid things, So like I mentioned, there was lockdown, but it was, it was so hard getting used to like the rule following of being in lockdown. So yeah, I think it was the 10, there was lockdown. So we were still allowed to be outside at bars until 9:30 or something, whatever. Then what we did was we would find other people who were also outside, and then hear around, like, hey, what's going on? Like, we don't want to go home, etc. So we would find these parties that people were throwing in secret parks or at the beach in like more remote locations. So we would all try to find ways to go there without being caught by the police. So it would be on these like scooters you can rent in Valencia in Spain. You can also rent them like many places in the world, but it's these like scooters, not the ones you stand on, but like actual scooters you sit on. So we would like rent those and then like drive throughout the street, like, look, is there police there? So we wouldn't get caught, because the police there, they were very, they were very strict, and you would get fined if you were out past midnight. So we would find these things to still make the best out of lockdown and not go completely insane.
Just to get us onto like a certain type of track here, I feel like Taufik and I should probably introduce ourselves a little bit more, as well as explain how we know each other, all three of us. I think that it's important for viewers to kind of understand
how I mean, guys, we can say this is the first podcast, so like we did not expect it to be perfect. So I mean, but I'm very happy. I'm very happy to do so, Oliver, and I'm very happy for you to start introducing, and actually maybe we can even like switch it a little bit. Maybe instead of you introducing yourself, you can introduce me, and I could introduce you as well. But it's up to you as well.
Let's do
that.
The
whole point of this podcast is to be very authentic, to be ourselves like we always are, and to just share everything that we know and we've experienced so far. So I think there's no better way to do it than as the one I mentioned. So if you want to do it, go for it.
Okay, great. I'm gonna start with what I think I know, and correct me if I get any information wrong. Okay, so Taufik is originally from Israel. He's 28 years old.
29.
And 29 as of 2 weeks ago, and he has lived all over the world. He was born in Israel, grew up on a kibbutz, which is like a social organization of people who farm and do other activities. And both of his parents
social communism.
Yes, sir. And his parents are doctors, if I remember correctly.
Nurses.
Father is You're really?
Yeah, both of them.
Okay, cool. And he went to school in Prague for his college education. I don't remember which school, but he lived in Prague for a little while as well. And he did a year in high school in the United States in some random place that I don't remember right now. But he now lives in Haifa, which is a city in Israel, and is doing his MBA while also working for BCG, the consulting company, and that's about it. I know him because I'm in the program as well with him. That's how we know each other.
I mean, again, a really nice introduction. I don't know if I will be able to replicate it, but let's see. So Oliver is the type of person. So he comes from the state. He is originally, I don't know if we can say you're from Israel, but he's Jewish. His parents used to live here, and then they moved to the state to LA, and he was born in LA, and then he came here to do his MBA. And Oliver is one of those people when you meet these sort of individual like-minded, and you know that you're going to connect with them sort of like in the first couple of days when you were interacting with each other. Because for me, it's the same way I've also met with Magnus and during the program as well. Coming from the similar background, I think when you meet people like-minded, you click with them sort of like you know that you're going to click with them. And Oliver was one of those people. And I think for Oliver, I mean, I was served also as a therapist in some extent, and also as a gaming partner as well. So there's a lot to say about him. And he's 25. He's doing his MBA, and he's doing a great internship as a private equity analyst in a company in Herzliya as well, which is also here in Israel. So, and I mean, for that introduction, actually, it reminded me something that I would like to also maybe bring it up with Magnus as well. So, Magnus, you left the state at sort of a, let's say, 24, 25, if I'm not mistaken, which is also which is also approximately when I moved to Spain. And I think we talked about it like many times before, and I would like to also bring it here, and Oliver, maybe to hear your opinion, because you're sort of in the same situation as we were in Spain, is when you move to a new country at sort of your mid-20s, it's a little bit different than your early 20s, I think. And we talked a lot about it. I think it's because you're coming with a different mindset. So as a young person, when you're in your early 20s, you're not as selective or as cautious in your decisions and in your friendship and all of this. So how was the transition for you, Magnus, moving to Spain at 25 years old, which you're not old, but you were also not very young at that age, because this is the age where we sort of develop some sort of maturity to some extent, of course. So how was it for you moving to Spain at that age and then having to start your life again?
I think already having a basis of having so many international friends and so many international what you call like relationships with people like definitely made me more selective in who I wanted to be close to, be friends with, or yeah, definitely getting closer to. because it's already, you have such a big base of friends that you are talking to. It's like, how many can I really have? So I was definitely being a little more selective while still being open-minded. And I think for me, you know, like I've been on a team my entire life with swimming, so I was gifted, you can say, like a huge friend base of, you know, like different people that I could be friends with very, very organically. Here, it was much more limited when I moved to Spain, because we just had our class. We were very few boys, like 4 or 5, 5 boys. Um, so it's not like a given that we instantly, you know, click with each other, or, you know, have the same kind of humor or whatnot. So it was definitely like, it took some time in the beginning, you know, getting over that barrier. And then I think, like, for at least from my side, with you, me and Luca is our third friend, that we were in a friend group together in the masters. Like that came very organically in a way. We all three found out, like, yeah, we had the same kind of dark, twisted humor. We had a lot of the same um, hobbies that we liked. So I think, yeah, definitely more selective in your way, and or in my way. And it was, yeah, a little bit harder. You had to figure out new ways how to make friends, I would say. I don't know how it
Oliver,
was for you, Todd, or Oliver, like what you
yeah,
guys
I'm
Was
think.
actually
it?
curious. I'm curious to hear about Oliver as well. But yeah, Oliver, please, what do you want to say?
I just have a question. Was it?
Yeah.
Would you feel? Did you feel like, because it was just 4 guys when you had gotten to Spain, that like you were you were forced into camaraderie rather than it growing kind of like in a natural way, in the sense that like you kind of were friends with them because you needed to be friends with them rather than because you wanted to be friends with them in a way. You know what I mean? Like
I think so. Here's very important for
it doesn't. I just want to clarify. It doesn't mean like anything about the relationship that you have with them. Like
no,
it
no,
could be
I
good, you
know.
know, but like from the initial like reason of connecting, sometimes because of something like that, it might be like a little forced in a sense.
So I remember this because Tofik, he was in Israel the first couple of months after we started the masters, because I don't know, it was your visa or something like that. Tofik, you couldn't move to Spain. So Tofik was not really a guy that I talked to. I was getting very close to Luca in an organic way. I don't feel like we were forced. I think it definitely contributed that we were very few guys, and we were just lucky to have the same mindset, or the same, you know, humor, or, you know, like a person that you could see yourself as being friends with. So it was very easy for me and Luca. And I remember, like, we talked. I don't remember if we ever talked about this topic, but like me and Luca, we were like, oh yeah, like how's Tofik? You know, like you know, he's a little bit like holding back, or, you know, because we were only seeing you online. So it's like, I wonder how he is in person, you know. And then when you actually arrived to Spain, we were like, yeah, he's very. I don't remember exactly what we said, but not that you were weird, but like you were just, you know, you were quiet. You were not really as fun to be around. You know, like that was our initial and our initial idea of you. So yeah, like, to going back to your question, I don't think we were forced to it. It was just like it kind of happened organically. And yeah, correct me if I'm wrong topic.
Yeah, no,
I
no,
think
no.
we were just lucky to us three find each other. And
For sure.
Exactly. Exactly. And I
yeah,
mean, my journey to Spain was also very bumpy. So I was also dealing with that stress. I think like when
yeah,
COVID hit as well, I had to move from Prague to Spain. And I like, luckily to my friends, and I hope they're watching because I can never thank them enough for what they did. So basically, my friend, I rented a car in Prague and I had to bring it back to Prague. And I couldn't because I was moving to Spain. So I asked my friend if they can basically drive me all the way from Prague to Valencia with the car and then bring back the car during pandemic. And we're talking about like, we're talking August 2020, when the pandemic was like all around Europe, and Europe is a borderless continent. So you're moving between the European Union, like between countries without border. And what was really nice about this experience, and I will also talk about the negatives of the experience, but what was really nice about it is that this is the part of like living abroad, is you get to make such a large network of connectiveness in across the world that, you know, wherever you go, it can be anywhere, you might know somebody, or somebody you know will connect you to somebody there. So for example, the way we traveled from Prague to Valencia, we did it by car. We went from Prague to Germany, where I visited one of my closest friend, Yoshi, who I spent 5 years together in Prague, and he was my flatmate for 3 years. We stayed at his parents' house in Germany. Then we went to France, where we spent at my friend's mom's house, and we spent like few nights there. And then went to the south of France, where we knew some people as well, and then went to Spain. So that whole journey. But the worst part of that journey is that, like, there before, we didn't realize that all of us had COVID. So basically, we were 5 people and a dog in a car going going across Europe, from like Czech Republic to Spain, all of us positive, 5 people positive with COVID, and just spreading it all around the continent. And I remember at one point when we were on the way, I told my friends that they need to stop the car because I was simply not feeling good. And my friend looks at me. She told me this. She's like, "I've never seen you that white in my life." And you can see how unwhite I am in general. But she was like, "I've never seen you that white in my life. You looked like a ghost." So going to Spain, not knowing anybody, moving to a place where I didn't know with my dog, having COVID and all, and then the visa issue that didn't work, like, have just completely put me down during that period. Then I had to come back and fix it. So I just wanted to add that point as well. It's just like the value of having so many friends from like all over the world, and like why important to actually like nurture these friendships, because a lot of friendships that I have and that I've lost as well, that I hope that things ended differently or were differently. But yeah, so the message that I want is like, whenever all of my friends that I have, I'm like very grateful to have them and everything that they've done for me so far.
Definitely, same for me. And it's like you are friends with people throughout different stages of your life, and it doesn't mean that necessarily the friendships you had a couple of years ago, that they mean less just because you're not friends necessarily now, or that you're not talking as much. You know, I have friends I don't talk to longer periods of time, and then whenever I see them or we talk, it's like, you know, we saw each other yesterday. So yeah, definitely also appreciate all the friendships that I have made throughout the years.
Yeah.
I don't know
No,
how
and now, actually, sorry to interrupt you, Magnus. Now I'm actually curious because I would like to maybe just talk a little bit with Oliver and actually bring him. I want to know your experience because you moved from LA to Tel Aviv. And I always said that like the US and Israel have very like similar culture in some sense. It's all about the hustling. It's all about like working, making money, moving forward, like very like goal oriented. Whereas in Europe, and Magnus can agree with me, I think the environment, I don't want to generalize it, but in Europe, it's a more lax, say, sort of environment. So how was it? Was it an easier transition for you from LA to here as well? And maybe
I've
just fun fact about Oliver, his brother or his sister's husband is a friend of Jonah Hill. So I think this is cool. Actually, I think it's quite cool. But yeah, go ahead.
um, so I have to say I probably come with like a little bit of a cheating card because both of my parents are Israeli. So the fact that I've grown up around Israeli culture and coming to Israel a lot since I was a little kid probably changes my view about this city. But I would definitely agree with you that, you know, the vibe can be similar in certain places. Like in the big cities in the States, you'll definitely find the same hustle and bustle that you'll find here in Tel Aviv. And, you know, it's different. It's definitely different. Like there's a lot of more formality in the United States, and things are slower because of like people follow the rules in a way. Either people are like totally criminal or they're just like following the rules, kind of, you know. And here it's I would have to say it's more blurred lines between who's breaking the rules and who's following the rules. But I think that adds to how successful some people become here in Israel. And I think that from me moving here, the transition was very easy because I was so interested in it. Like I love that about Israel, and that's kind of why I came, is to kind of try and adopt more of that. Like I feel like I grew up in a system where it's like so structured and so organized, and there's so many like different things you need to do to get something done. Where here in some ways there's more things that you need to get to do, but or need to do to get things done. But in many of the things that are, I would say, more precious in terms of your experience of life, it's much more available. Like just the nightlife and going out and meeting people and the way that people introduce one another, and it's just like it's much better here in that sense in terms of like a culture than it is in the United States. And in the States, like I love LA, that's where I'm from. And I would say that LA is Tel Aviv number 2, but it could never be Tel Aviv number 1 or even many other city number 1, because it's just too much of a melting pot and still has a lot of the old values of the United States. It's like it's different, like here you'll find a lot of new thinking, but it's based in like thousands of years of history, like there's a lot of stuff that has gone down here and people pass it on. And in the States, everything is just new and big and as fast and shiny as it can be because people can make it that way. But it's not like that here. Like you'll find the shiny stuff when you need it, in a sense. It's more of a utilitarian culture. And I think that's what I love about it here. I connect to that. So I would say that my transition here was very simple because I love it here. But I could see how, especially someone in my situation, because I moved right before the whole situation in Israel happened. And, uh, I could understand how some people would just bail ship and go, but I think my connection to this city is much stronger than anything that could happen anywhere in the world. Like even if COVID had just started, I would have been happy to move to Tel Aviv.
Yeah, I agree. And I think the thing with the US as well, or the culture in general, is that, for example, when you introduce yourself in a party or in a social setting, academic setting, etc., you always mention like your titles, like who you are, or like what do you do, So if somebody asks you like who you are, like in the US, you will say, "Oh, I'm a lawyer" or "I'm a doctor," before actually saying. And I think like in Europe, it's more different. Like they don't really mention like, oh, like they mention it at a later point, but it's not one of the first things that they mention as well. But yeah, it's interesting to see like how different, like the different cultural aspect between the States, and then you have Israel, and then you have Europe as well. And Magnus, I saw one theme. So we said that you moved from Denmark to Florida, which is sort of like, let's consider it's a southern place.
Yeah, exactly.
Also, like some may say it's a very crazy state. Everyone some very crazy state. And then moving to Spain to do the master. And the thing is, our master, as we mentioned before, it came during COVID, and the master is an Erasmus master. So every semester you spend at a different university. Although despite COVID, etc., you managed to do the first semester in Valencia and then the second semester in Italy, and then you came back to Spain, and then you moved to do your internship in Portugal, and then you managed to secure a job after in Portugal. So did you always know that southern countries or southern cultures are the environment where you see yourself thriving the most, or that you will see yourself spending the most time of your life, basically?
So I think that's a big question, right? Definitely my mentality has changed a lot throughout the years. How I look at life, I am as a person compared to when I was living back in Denmark. When I was living there, I was following all the rules almost, like, of course, like some things here and there happen, but in general, I would say, as my mentality was like you follow all the rules, you don't question so many things. It's just like the way it is to a certain extent, right? So then I moved to Florida, and then it's just like I'm on my own. I can do whatever I want. All of a sudden, living in a foreign country and living in a state as Florida, because it is as crazy as they say. And Oliver, I mean, you know as well.
Florida people are real. Florida people are definitely
they are real, and also within Florida, you have different level of craziness. So I would say definitely down, in Miami, in Fort Lauderdale. So I was living in Fort Lauderdale. Like there are not that many societal rules, and people. It's a lawless place, really, Florida, I would say. So it's like, you see the most crazy things. I don't know. I'm not going to come up with any examples for right now, but like you see many different and crazy things. So like from being there already, I think my mind had changed so much. So when I came back to Denmark and was there also, especially, you know, during COVID, it was just like I found it harder to identify myself with being in Denmark and with the Danish culture. There's still things I love about the Danish culture, but there are also a lot of things where I don't think it's for me, and I don't identify myself so much with that way of living. It was not because of that necessarily that I moved to Spain. It was because of the masters. But then I just found out like that way of living in Southern Europe, taking a step back, enjoying the small things, the way that you meet up with people out on the street. You go and you enjoy a beer for €1 where it would be 10 in Denmark. It's those things that you start to enjoy way more and enjoy life, yeah, in a different way, I would say. Yeah, I don't know, like that's kind of like my outlook on it. I don't know if I would stay forever down here in Southern Europe, because you know there are also other things that contributes to that decision, such as financial stability and whatnot. But I think at least now, for my period in life where I am right now, I'm very happy. I think this is the perfect place for me to be in this stage. So yeah, I'll take it as it come. I'm not that stressed about the future, so we'll see what it has in store.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's interesting. I see it a common pattern among a lot of people who, let's say, deviated from their hometown at a very young age and then started moving around the world.
Mm-hmm.
And I see a common pattern where, like, at one point you cannot settle, you stop being able to settle permanently at one point. And I think this is sort of like a double-edged sword, because at one point you, like, let's say everybody, it's a course of life, it's the natural course of life to be able, like, to stabilize yourself, to settle somewhere, then to move on in your life progress. But I feel like knowing and having lived in different places really, like, impacted in, don't know if I can say positive or negative way. I mean, it has its pros and its cons, but I think it's quite interesting to see how people with the same, let's say, life experiences and the same all what we're discussing, um, have this sort of, like, trying to find stability, but at the same time really enjoying the instability. So I don't know, I just find it very interesting. And I don't know, so do you think then at one point, Magnus, and maybe this, Oliver, also to you, this is your question, do you think at one point do you see yourself settling in a place for like a long period of time?
No, I find it hard to stay still, you know, in the same place, because it's like, I think it's my, you know, adventurous side that wants to experience something new all the time, and to go to new places, to live in new places, to meet new people. So that's also why I'm saying, you know, like, I don't know if I will stay here in Portugal forever. Like, at least for now, it's right for me. I have found calmness in staying here. I found comfortness in staying here. So at least right now, I don't have that urge to move. But I don't know in a year, or I don't know in 2 years, like, if I will get that urge again. But it's definitely something that I have had, and I also think you have had, Tofik. I don't know about you, Oliver, because yeah, you said you moved from Israel to the US and then US to Israel. So
No,
I don't know.
I just moved. I just moved.
It was
From,
your parents that lived in Israel before.
yeah,
Okay, yeah, before you were born.
yeah.
Yeah. So I think definitely it has pros, because you learn so much about life, different cultures. You learn about the world in such a cool way that you cannot get through books or movies or whatever, or staying in the same place. So like that part, amazing, very cool. But then it also has the con of like, oh, I kind of want to keep on going. I don't want the adventure to end, the thrill to end.
Yeah, I agree.
I don't
And
know,
I think
topic with
also,
you. Yeah.
I think when we're like at a young age, because we're relatively still young, and I think at a young age, when you don't have that many, let's say, commitment, like long-term commitment that are holding you back, then it becomes sort of like an easier path to take, because you think to yourself, nothing is holding me back, so I can go and experiment and go live in here for like a couple of months and go live here in a couple of months. And especially in Europe, when it's so easy. I mean, for me as a non-European, it's a little bit difficult, because of course you have the whole bureaucratic approach with the visa, etc. But I feel like for Europeans in general, it's very easy. Like you just pick up your bag, you take your backpack, and you just move. So, but yeah, I'm being mindful of the time, because we're almost up to almost to the end. Oliver, would you like to add something before I ask Magnus my final question?
No, I want to hear your final question.
Yeah, I mean, so you lived in all of these places, and I
Yes.
just want to know, like, maybe like this is a very general and high level question, but out of all these places, if you have a chance to permanently settle only in one place, which out of all these countries or city would you see yourself permanently settling? You have no other option. Like, you have to live there for the rest of your life. Which, from the places you've lived, which one would you
Like
choose?
for the countries or the cities?
It can be anything. It can be a country or a city. So, for example, you lived in
Okay.
Spain, in Valencia, you lived in
Okay.
Portugal, in Porto, or in Lisbon. It doesn't matter. So, just a city in a country that you lived in that you would like see yourself settling in for like a very long period of time.
Okay. Like people ask me that question sometimes. Yeah, I've been asked, like where do I want to live? And it's a, I feel like it's such a hard question. I will answer it, but like it is such a hard question because I have lived in these places in different stages of my life. So in Denmark, I was doing high school and everything up until high school, and that was my life there. So that's the kind of the life I know in Denmark there. In the US, I lived through college and I had a certain type of lifestyle there because of my age, because of the swimming, because I was doing. Then, Spain, it was a different way. Like I stopped swimming and then I started my master's. It started getting a little more serious, educational wise. And then here in Portugal, I'm then in my next stage of life where it's like I have a professional job. And don't have school anymore to rely on. So like when I think of that, it's like, yeah, you have to take that into account. And it's like, oh, Florida, for example, was amazing for that time of my life, but do I want to live there now? I don't necessarily think so, because of just, I don't know how crazy it is. And also the way that the lifestyle is in Miami. I don't know how well I fit into that. But I think if taking all of these things into considerations, I think Spain, like I'm very happy here in Portugal, but I think I would honestly, I would choose Spain, just because that's where also some of my other friends are living. We could be close, living together in the same city. Yeah, so I think honestly I would choose Spain, but I don't know.
And I'm sure you will also choose Barcelona in Spain, huh?
Yeah, because that's the thing, right? That's where some of my close friends are living. So, and also like you're almost moving there. Luca is living there, so like it's it's those bonds that those connections you want to be close with.
And as we always say, it's never a good idea for all three of us to move in together, because again,
It's a bad idea.
we have seen a lot of stories of what happened that we will not be able to share, unfortunately. But yeah, I mean, Magnus, first of all, thank you so much for being the first guest of this podcast. I'm very
Thank you
happy
for
with how
having
it
me.
went. Oliver, thank you for being a co-host. Amazing. I'm really very excited. I saw that also a lot of people have joined and saw this live. Like, super grateful, super thankful. I did not expect, but my best expectation was one viewer. So to have like more than that was already like meeting my, like exceeding my expectations. So if you
And I
like the
hope it
podcast,
was interesting, at least, that it was not just us
I
being
mean,
stupid.
yeah, no, I think a lot of people, I mean, if people have toned into view, either they want to make fun of us or they want to listen to what we actually have to say.
If
No, but
I have a
yeah, go
lot
ahead.
of people who are
Joe
making fun of me
Rogan,
already.
if Joe Rogan can have a podcast, we can have a podcast.
If Andrew Santino and Bobby Lee can have a podcast, we can also have a podcast.
Exactly.
Anyway, guys, both of you, thank you so much. The viewers, thank you so much. If you enjoyed the content and you would like to listen to more, please follow. Ask any question you would like. Let us know what you would like to hear in the next episode. I think we have upcoming episodes with a lot of interesting guests who have lived all over the world and have a lot of insight to share. So once again, thank you so much for the support. And we're happy to answer any question later on. And yeah, thank you so much. Wishing you all a great evening, afternoon, morning, wherever you are. And thank you for joining Life in General. Have a great one, everyone. Thank you, Oliver. Thank you, Magnus.
Bye, guys.
Thank you. Bye. Ciao.